You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, CBS Soap fans. We are here to discuss something important on Young and the Restless. What we're going to find out this week is that Phyllis Summers prefers revenge over her own children. And yes, that sounds harsh, but as you're going to see on Y&R, it's true. It's 100% true, and it's terrible. So upcoming Young and the Restless spoilers confirm that Phyllis Summers chose revenge over a future with her children. It's coming out this week exactly what her plan with Jeremy Stark was, and part of it is to walk away from Genoa City forever. Okay, the first phase of the big phase that we're just seeing on Young and the Restless of Phyllis Summers' fake death plan includes corpses and chaos. So we saw Phyllis Summers talking about the future with Jeremy Stark this week, and that's their future for how this revenge plan is going to work out for both of them. But one gaping hole in the fake death plan is that if Phyllis ever turns up alive, then Diane Jenkins will no doubt go free. So it seemed like it was a poorly constructed revenge plan, because how could Phyllis just stay in hiding? Well, as you're soon going to hear on Young and the Restless, Phyllis has no intentions of ever letting Diane get out of prison. But to make that happen, they did this elaborate scheme. They paid for bodies from the morgue to plant in the burning ambulance that they took off into a side road where it shouldn't have been, and then they burned it up, and they're saying, oh, there's no bodies because these random corpses were charred instead. Also, Christine Williams talks to Chance Chancellor about the investigation, and they discuss that they don't even have a body for Phyllis, so they can't do an autopsy. Of course, that's because she's alive and well. But there is that blood test, and it's a test tube of blood that Phyllis and Jeremy tainted with a toxin that's going to be the main evidence. But then Phyllis took one more step on Young and the Restless. She left a voicemail for Michael Baldwin where she was going off hysterically talking about how terrified she was that Diane is going to hurt her. And that came right after the cat fight that Summer, Jack, and Kyle walked in on. And if you remember, that's a cat fight that Phyllis set up by lying to Diane, getting her alone, and then coming at her physically first. She gave her a big shove, knowing that Diane was going to give it back, and then Phyllis was basically able to flip it around to where she looked like the victim. And the bottom line is that Phyllis is going to abandon her children in favor of revenge. Isn't that awful? So Phyllis decided that payback on Diane is worth ruining her children's lives over. Right now, Summer is completely distraught about her mother's death, and Daniel Romalotti is tormented by guilt because he thinks he was terrible to his mother right before she died. So Summer is busy planning a touching memorial service for Phyllis, and she is certain that Diane had a role in her mother's untimely death. Meanwhile, at this seedy motel across town, there's Phyllis Summers preparing to walk away from her children and everyone that gives a damn about her in Genoa City. We reported weeks ago at SoapDirt.com about a leaked Young and the Restless behind-the-scenes photo that shows the memorial service. So according to the plan that she has concocted with Jeremy, Phyllis should be long gone from Genoa City by the time that comes around. But it seems like a safe bet that she is not going to leave as they planned. My guess is that she wants to see Diane Jenkins arrested before she goes anywhere. She wants to make sure that Diane cannot slip out of the trap they have set. And we also have to guess that Phyllis Summers might show up in disguise to her own memorial service so she can see who's crying over her death. And that death is in quotes because she's alive and well and just tormenting people that care about her. Meanwhile, Jeremy Stark just wants to take the money and run. But will Phyllis actually go? Right now, we know that Phyllis gave Jeremy Stark half of her money, half of her estate, she called it, but half of her money to get him to help her. We have to wonder when all the dust settles, if she isn't found out and they start looking through her finances, aren't they going to notice this big payoff to her husband? And won't that raise suspicions against him? Because if he's going to profit from her death, then he should be the top suspect, right? But right now, Stark is ready to take the money she gave him and blow this popsicle stand. He just wants a new life. He's got cash. He knows Diane's going to be in prison, so he's ready to go. He's like, cool. He's ready to walk away from his new wife and then go. But Phyllis has no plans to leave town with him, is my personal guess. They were already planning to go their separate ways. She was going to go one way, Jeremy was going to go another, and their mutual enemy was going to be arrested and wind up in prison. That's great. However, I don't see it as likely at all that Phyllis will follow through and leave town. And the problem with that, with her lurking to see who shows up for her funeral, see the things that were said about her, which is all the kind of things that Phyllis, would like to hear. She wants to hear that she's missed. It's just kind of awful if she wants to be around and see her children's tears, though, right? Isn't that awful? She also will want to know for sure that Diane is arrested and is going to prison and that everything worked out according to plan. But the longer that Phyllis Summers stays in town, the greater the chance that she's going to be spotted. And if she's spotted, she's going to be busted for faking her death to set up Diane. So here's what we're wondering is on the timing, because no, there's no reason to think that Phyllis Summers is leaving Young the Restless. There's no reason to think that Michelle Stafford is exiting. Okay. She is staying around, but there's this big reveal. We have to see the big reveal of finding out that Phyllis is alive. We are a few weeks away from May sweeps. So we're wondering if it's going to be then that everyone finds out this awful thing that Phyllis Summers has done. No matter if it's May sweeps or they stretch it to summer and they do a big reveal then, the bottom line is, will anyone be able to forgive Phyllis for faking her death and tormenting her children and upsetting everyone who cares about her, which is a whole pile of people in Genoa City? And once the truth comes out, how will Summer and Daniel cope with the idea that their mom was just planning to cut ties and walk away from them just to make this revenge scheme happen? They've both been very upset at her about her meddling and about her lies about Diane and about her targeting them. But right now they're just so upset and so hurt that that's all they're thinking about. And Summer basically accused Diane of doing something to her mother. But when this all comes out, as it inevitably will, as it certainly will on Young and the Restless, it's all going to blow back on Phyllis. And the question is, will Stark still be around by then? We'll have to wait and see. He sounds like he wants to leave town, but he's a silver fox and a lot of fans really like him. So maybe he won't go either. But either way, it's just a countdown at this point to Phyllis's kids finding out that she cares more about seeing Diane in jail than she cares about seeing them and her grandchildren for the rest of her life. Pretty horrible, right?
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.